we have a bill, the Keep Our Civilians Safe Act, okay, which basically would prohibit immigrants arrests within 1,000 feet of sensitive locations, such as schools, shelters, houses of worship, and government offices, unless backed by a judicial warrant, because no one should have to choose between seeking safety and risking detention. And people ask me so all the time, Senator Jackson, what is your top priority? What are your priorities? Top priority for me is knowing that my constituents are in their housing and in our community are safe and sound. That's number one. If we're not safe in our homes, in our community, we're all in trouble.
This is Uptown Voices, the podcast that represents the people of Inwood, Washington Heights, Harlem, and the South Bronx. We celebrate our neighbors, hold leaders accountable, and seek community-centric solutions to the issues we're all confronting. Spread love. It's the Uptown way. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Uptown Voices. Today is a big day for us because we have the one and only State Senator Robert Jackson joining us on the podcast. So, Mr. Senator, how are you today? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. That means that I'm home now because I was up in Albany, and so I came in the office nice and warm, in order to do this podcast, and I'm ready for it.
I really appreciate that you trooped it all the way down from Albany. There's budgets, there's politics, and so we really appreciate that you're down.
And you know how much the budget is? $260 billion.
Oh man, that's like a large country's budget. That's huge. My brother from another mother, Led Black, the executive editor of Uptown Collective. He is the voice of Uptown. I am always so honored that I get to work with this man.
And thanks, likewise.
So I am feeling, I'm just very happy to be here with the both of you. So Led, how are you doing? Let the audience know how you're doing, and let's kick this off.
Let's go. Thank you, my brother. Mad love always. I'm super excited for our guest, Senator Robert Jackson. But before we get to it, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, spread that Uptown love. It shows that love, right, y'all? But Senator Robert Jackson is so interesting because, like, you're a staple in this community. I've seen you for so long running or tending to your constituents, like, for so long. But you've been in public service for so long. But, what I want to kind of start off, like, what's your origin story? What drew you to public service? Why does this mean something to you? Why not go make millions of dollars somewhere else? And why is this important to you?
Well, that story goes back to me graduating from college when my family and I lived in the Bronx, right across the 103rd Street Bridge on Montgomery Avenue. My wife and I got married, and so my wife and I moved across the bridge and to 180th and Pinehurst Avenue. And so that's where I've been, basically in northern Manhattan, not a 180th and Pinehurst, but I'm on 4 Washington Avenue. So, and it's been like 50 years. So it's not just new, The most important thing is that I had the opportunity to go to college through the Upward Bound program. Upward Bound program, if you don't know, it's a program where children like myself needed some assistance in getting into college and help, and basically had the opportunity to go to college and graduate, and then moved on with getting employment, a job, in order to basically support myself and my wife. And so basically that was the start of my involvement here in northern Manhattan. And the bottom line with that is that my wife and I, we had our first child. We have 3 children right now, but my children are now young adults. As I said, moved over here straight from college, which was over 50 years ago. And my oldest daughter is now 50 years of age. My middle one is 45, and the youngest one is 39. And they all went to school right here at our local school. And the bottom line is that's how I got involved in the political process, through education. I've said loud and clear, education is the key to uplift all people and all families. It doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, if you're Hispanic, if you're Asian, whether you're rich or you're poor. That's the equalizer. And you know one thing? If you, when I say you, whoever I'm talking to, basically, if you focus on what you're trying to do and work hard at it, then uh, 95% of the time you will be effective in that. And you had one of you led you had said that you're here from your brothers from another mother. I said that many years ago when Bill Perkins, who was a state senator, who was a city council member in Harlem, and he used to say, we're brothers from another mother, and so that's what it was about. And he said, your health is your wealth, because basically if you don't have your health, we're in trouble. But unfortunately, he passed away, but he was like a brother to me, because when we were both in the city council, we would go to events in Harlem and northern Manhattan together, because I had the car. So if we had to drive, we would do that. And so he was like my brother. And, they've named the street after him on 110th Street and Fifth Avenue, Senator Bill Perkins. But the bottom line is that my involvement in our kids' school was a tipping point. Why do I say that? Because there were around 33 people active on the Parents Association. And of those 33 people, majority of them were women. And it was only about 3 or 4 men. And I was one of those men. And they educated me. Did I say educated? Yeah, they educated me and helped me to learn the process as far as, as a parents association. And so I went through the ranks of being elected to the Parents Association, vice president, president of the Parents Association. And I was on the Parents Association at PSIS 187 for 19 continuous years.
Whoa.
So, okay, because my kids were in school there. So I had to work at it. And we used to say to the people that were the treasurers that no one gets to say that you have to be reimbursed unless they have a receipt. No receipt, you don't get reimbursed. That's to keep some structure in that. And then obviously when the school board was there, we had someone representing our school, PSIS 187, on 187th Street and Pinehurst Avenue, on the school board. And when that person did not run again, they said, why don't you run? We will support you. And I did. I ran, and they supported me. Basically, not only PSI's 187, but others that knew about me as an individual working as a parents association. And I ran and I won with others on the school board. I was on the school board for, I think, like 15 years, elected to time again. And so that was important overall. And then obviously when elections came and they said, why don't you run for the election for the New York City Council? And I did. So it came from like a plant. You plant the plant in the dirt and you take care of it, and then it will grow. And so I grew with the Parents Association of PSIS 187 and the Parents Association for Washington Heights and Inwood. So that's what it was about. And so one thing led to the other. And obviously I was elected to the city council. And what committees was I on? They put me on the education committee, where then I subsequently, I chaired the education committee for, I think, about 8 years out of the 12 years that I served in the New York City Council. And then elected, obviously, I ran for office and did not win for borough president of Manhattan. But subsequently, I was elected a couple of years later for the New York State Senate and won overall. Bottom line is, I'm on all 3 committees because I said before, education is the key to uplift our families and children. So I'm on the New York City Education Committee, which is New York City. I'm on the State Education Committee. Let me see that, everyone, please. And I'm on higher education. And so here's one example of the things that I have in my office about education. And the AQE, the Alliance for Quality of Education, tax the rich, food, fund our schools is so important because, and this one here, child care now. This is what they're talking about right now, that we want our kids to have child care from birth until they're adolescents, like 13 years of age. And that's what our mayor is fighting for also. So these are, and even though these here are things about education, that's how important education is in the lives of our children. And so I've been involved with that and I continue to be involved with that. But my kids now are all young adults. One's a doctor, one's a math specialist for a school district in Virginia, and the other one works for Alvin Ailey Company as the, the company manager for Alvin Ailey too. So they're on their road for taking care of business, and I am just trying to continue to represent 31st Senatorial District of the State Senate. And you may see as people, when I'm talking to them, when I tell them I represent the 31st Senatorial District, and then I said, well, where's that at? Because most people don't know where that. Yeah.
Well,
Most people
so
don't
where's
know
it at?
yeah.
I don't know where it's
where
at.
it
Tell
is.
me.
Is that from 155th Street, Washington, all of Washington Heights, all of Inwood, and all of Marble Hill, which is 225th Street area. It used to be I only had part of it, but I have all of it now. And then 1/3 of my district is in the Northwest Bronx. And people say, where's that at? You go across the 1st Street Bridge, which is the Washington Bridge, not the George Washington Bridge, the Washington Bridge. So, and then area there that gets towards Jerome Avenue where the number 4 train is. And then you go across the 207th Street Bridge. These are bridges that people in Washington Heights and Inwood are very much aware of. And then the 225th Street Bridge. So those are the bridges that connect me to the Northwest Bronx. And I've been there now for about 2 years, and I'm, working on my 8th year overall as a representative representing the 31st Senatorial District. And the struggle continues. I sued the state of New York with Michael Rebell, who was an attorney at with CFE, the Campaign for Fiscal Equity. You can't see this, but I have my big walking mile for your child, because I walked all the way to Albany, 150 miles, to fight a system that basically say, no, you don't deserve any more money in order to make sure your kids get a sound basic education. And so I said, then if in fact they won't give it to us, then we will sue them. And we sued the Department of Education for not giving our children the opportunity to learn and reach out to what the highest court said, that our children need to graduate from high school knowing how to read, knowing how to write, knowing how to serve on a jury, and being able to hold competitive employment. That's the minimum standard that they're entitled to. And that's what that lawsuit was about. And that's why I walked in 2003, 150 miles from the court of the First Department Appeal Division, like I think of 25th Street and 5th Avenue. And also I worked again with AQE, the Alliance for Quality Education, in 2016. So it's about willing to do the work in order to basically give the people that we represent every opportunity in order to do right, in order to, have your kids grow up and having the opportunity to go to college, and do, from a point of view of working. Now you have your college degree, now you can get a job and work. And the first type of work that I got involved with was I worked for the state of New York as an unemployment insurance investigator, investigating fraud. And that's a big job as far as work, but not how much they paid me, though, I'm telling you. But it was good. And I went to go work for the union thereafter, the New York State Public Employees Federation. That's a statewide union of the state of New York representing professional, scientific, and technical employees. And those are all the people, doctors, lawyers, engineers, all the people that over 55,000 people test New York State Public Employees Federation represents right now. And so that's what my life was about. And from that point, I was elected to the positions that I talked about earlier, as far as city council and other positions, in which, right now you may say, well, what's the salary? Right now, the salary that I earn with every state assembly member and every state senator, the same thing. If you're working full time, you're earning $42,000. Some people may think that's a lot of money, and it is a lot of money if you don't have that much. But I think that, you know, quite frankly, we need a raise.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, in New York City, 42,000 is not exactly, you're not Daddy Warbucks.
And I don't own my own home. I'm a renter,
You're a renter. Okay. Well,
and I raised 3 girls.
I got 3 girls as well.
and I have a 16-year-old son. So, we have a community here that is is very interesting. They have a lot of issues. I think there's a little bit of sometimes because there's so many different people that are working in different at different levels of politics. I'm curious to know, like, what is it that what are the issues that your office is seeing most? How does your office sort of help local how does your office best help
Constituents.
locals?
Yeah. So the primary issue that comes into our office right here up in Inwood, 5030 Broadway, is about housing, affordable housing. Number one. And I would say this to you, that if you go ask the other elected representatives that represent the area also, they're going to say it's housing. Affordable housing is number one. And so that's the main thing. Obviously, there's other things such as education, such as Medicaid and Medicare and things like that. That's normal. But the main thing is housing, because the needs are great there. And that's why that the mayor under Eric Adams, there was a city of yes in order to build affordable housing. And look at 207th Street, if you know, look at these developments that went up right there. It looks very good to me, but how much is it going to cost? The people that we represent, whose average salary is not $142,000, or it may be, let's say, 65, 70,000 if two, or 100,000 if two people are working. Can we afford to live there? And so that's what we try to help people do, to find out whether or not. And so we have 7 people in the office that works for the constituents. I have 2 people up in my Albany office that work from a legislative point of view. And so that's what basically is my workload as far as my staff are concerned.
Oh, I
And
see it.
all of the staff here speaks English and Spanish.
Yeah. And
Up
so
in,
when
up in Albany, I'm sorry, up in Albany, they don't speak Spanish, but if we need to have our staff, Joanna comes up, our chief of staff, or Dario Quinsack, who's our director of operations, they speak Spanish.
Yeah, and so in what ways do you help locals when they come in with housing issues? Are they coming in because they can't find affordable housing and you help them to find a house, or do they come in when their rent has been raised and they are challenging it? Like, so how do you help them? What can they expect if they come to the office?
Yeah, the first thing what we do is when people say, listen, I'm looking for a place to live. I need something that's affordable. We ask them, please come in. We want to do an assessment on what are you looking for? What's the quality? How many people in your family? All of the nitty gritty stuff we need to know. So if you're talking about yourself, or versus you and your spouse, or you have 3 children, and what type of employment do you have? Do you have, uh, uh, as far as your age or your disability, all of the things that you need to know in order to try to refocus on the type of house. What have you done in order to look for affordable for housing? because it's not like, okay, well, here, now you have it, so please you go and find me a place. No, it's about working together with constituents in order to try to get them into the type of affordable housing that they can afford. That's what it's about.
And Senator Jackson, I wanted to ask you, about taking a little further up in terms of what's happening federally with Trump's war on immigrants. What is your office? How's your office preparing for the onslaught that's most likely going to come, like when it came to Minnesota, especially since your district is a front lines immigrant community. What are your thoughts on what's happening, and how can your office and other people and regular citizens get involved and help out?
Well, it's important that has happened where people in our community have organized themselves with respects to whistles and other pieces of material that they have. Let's talk on the ground now. It's important that we do what we have to do in order to be safe and know that if something happens to me, my wife, then we have to look for them. We have to find out, where they disappeared from. And wherever they disappeared from, what happens if, for example, if basically shoots someone on a corner, what do the police do? They look at what? What do they look at? They look at the videos in the neighborhood. So if in fact ICE was involved in something, look at the videos in the area to see exactly what happened. It's important because we have to be able to determine something happened to them, whether or not it's your brother, your mother, your sister, your children, all of that's extremely important overall. But also, we have a bill, the Keep Our Civilians Safe Act, okay, which basically would prohibit civic and immigrants arrests within 1,000 feet of sensitive location. And what sensitive location? Such as schools, shelters, houses of worship, and government offices, unless backed by a judicial warrant, because no one should have to choose between seeking safety and risking detention. And so, keeping our family safe is number one. And people ask me so all the time, Senator Jackson, what is your top priority? What are your priorities? And I would say to you and to them, top priority for me is knowing that my constituents are in their housing and in our community are safe and sound. That's number one. If we're not safe in our homes, in our community, we're all in trouble. And so number two, then the issue you said, I asked me that was number one, affordable housing, health care. Healthcare is so important. A lot of stuff right now on Medicaid that's happening, and Medicare for seniors and people with special needs. All of that's so important. Labor, people looking for jobs, and with the state of New York, uh, they're working on and improving that the state is now you can go online and look on a computer and see if there's job opportunities that you may qualify for. And if you don't have a computer at home, they can come to my office and say, "I'm looking for a job. I need help looking for a job. Or can you help me?" So yeah, we can sit down at a computer, see what jobs are available based on what type of experience they have. And so it's about opening up our office to the constituents that we represent. And that's us doing our job overall. And so there's many things such as the Senate Bill number S-176, and people give me numbers. I said, so what is that bill? The legislation to end qualified immunity. Whereas what's
Mm,
happening in, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is people are being killed. And so and when you look at the pictures that they showed on TV, because that's the only way I can see them, because as I said before, what people really do if there's something that happens, they're looking at the videos in all of the stores and what have you in order to see who was involved, who's
right.
running, and all of that type. That's important in the process to determine, and that's why the governor of Minnesota, they found out that that person, the nurse, was shot about 8 times.
Yeah, I think it was 11 altogether. Yeah.
11. So that's the type of, I guess, security that you need to have with yourself and your family. Because even for myself, I am not an immigrant. I was born in Harlem Hospital, raised in Harlem, and grew up in New York City, my entire family. But family members of mine going back towards slavery was, here. But it's important that you carry proper ID. And so the ID that I carry is the state ID that the state of New York gives me as an elected public official. But also, I was concerned going back when they first started to do this, whereas I carried my passport ID card. So I had two solid pieces of evidence of who I am. But you know one thing? The way that they're acting when I say they, the ICE officers, they weren't, in my opinion, caring about this. And in fact, it's been said, and I don't know the accuracy of it, but it's been said that they are stopping more people of color than anywhere else. And so right now, I heard that our president basically is slowing down and pulling back because the negative stuff that's happening to all of the people that are listening and see what's going on. And they said, this is not right. This is not how we should behave to people that come here looking for the affordability to work and raise their family here. That shouldn't happen. So, but
Uh,
educating ourselves to these particular things and knowing about social justice and knowing about the bills about ending qualified immunity, where if those people that shot and killed those people and you got proof that it was not in order to save someone else's life, then you need to be held accountable for killing someone or shooting someone because that's not right.
That's right.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the two bills that you're talking about are New York for All, and the other one to end qualified immunity. Unfortunately, we live in a country right now where the Supreme Court has said that it's okay to stop individuals if they speak with an accent or if they're a little bit more melatonin than somebody else. So it's a very dangerous place, and I don't know if carrying an ID. I think that's if we can, we can. But I feel that our rights are being eroded when we can be just stopped on the street because of the way we look or the way we sound, and for no other reason than that. And then we are asked for our papers. I think that's absolutely wrong. It sounds terrible. So yeah, I think how has the I think that the governor has been sort of tiptoeing the line and sort of moving a little bit more towards the left in terms of her stance on protecting immigrants. But I think that the bill that you're referencing, New York for All, goes farther than what the governor has indicated that she wants to go. When are we going to know whether or not New York for All has passed? When does that vote happen?
The vote happens when you have two houses of the legislative body. You have the state Senate, in which I'm a member of, where there's 63 members in the New York State Senate. And so we have to pass that bill. And then in the House, meaning the New York State Assembly, there's 150 members of the New York State Assembly. Remember, I said before, the Assembly represents, give or take, about 165,000, where I represent in most state senators about 330 to 340,000 constituents. So we have to pass it by a majority in both, and then it has to be the same bill, but one in the name of the person from the assembly who's the lead sponsor and the person who is in the Senate, the lead sponsor. Those bills come together and it's the same bill, right? And it goes to the governor for approval to become the law. So
Yeah.
that's the process. And that can happen as quickly as you can come together in order to make it like that. Whereas they can't be different, they have to be the same. So, like, I put my two hands together, and as you see, it looks like one, but when it goes like that, it doesn't work that way. So that's
Yeah.
what has to happen in order for the bill to be made into the law. And I agree with you that she is attempting to, this is an electoral process, not only for me, not only for the assembly, but for her as the governor and others also. And so the question is, are you going to stand up and fight back from a legislative point of view by passing the law? I say yes. And most people would say yes to that also. I'm talking about not even people that are running for office, but I'm talking about the average New Yorker. When I say New Yorker, New York State person, as far as because this way it's happening is not acceptable. And in fact, you hear on the news that even Republicans believe that it's gone too far. So we have to put it all in the right perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Yeah. Go ahead, Liv.
And Senator Jackson, I mean, I think we have to say, happy Black History Month, right? I think that's super important. And you yourself, an example, a shining example of Black history. And, with the tyrant in power and, their hatred of all of us, right? Why is Black History Month still important? Why is it something that we need to, shout from the rooftops?
Well, it's important because that's part of the history of our country, Just like the Dominican leadership basically is as a result of, now they're here in this country. So the most important thing for me is knowing where I'm coming from. Me as an individual, my mother was from Georgia, and she is a light-skinned Black person. Okay. And so for me, I'm Black. It doesn't, because the shades of my skin, I was born and raised in English here in the United States, in New York. And I've spoken at Black History Month celebrations before in the Senate, where so many people speak about it. And so, with so many people speaking about how they are Black, and when it comes to, let's say, because everybody raised their hand in order to be called on, and I said for 2 months, not 2 months, for 2 hours, everybody has talked about it. But let me just say this: say it loud. I'm Black and
I'm
I'm
Black and I'm proud. I love that.
and so that brought people together to be more unified in the things that we do. So that's what it's about, basically. And just like Dominican Heritage Month, and all the others. Now,
Yeah.
also people don't know that I am the first Muslim in the New York State Senate. Then people say, "What? Yeah, I'm a Muslim." Well, you don't look like a Muslim. And then I say, "What does a Muslim look like?" Because my wife grew up as a Muslim woman in Tanzania, East Africa. I married her and I got out of college. And so we have three beautiful girls. And the bottom line is, what does a Muslim look like?
Right.
It looks like each and every one of us. And in fact, uh, even me being a Muslim, being the first Muslim in the city council of New York, going way back in 2002 when I was elected in the city council. So I don't run around saying I'm a Muslim. I'm a
Yeah.
Muslim.
I never knew you were Muslim. I never knew that.
Do you run around saying I'm a Christian? I'm a Christian.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's true. It's so interesting. Right.
I'm about peace and unity. That's what it's about. And so that,
Exactly.
I guess you got to just do your best in order to be a neighbor to the people in our community. And that's what I've trying to do my entire life because I've had some negative situations. My youngest sister, not youngest, one of my youngest sisters, when she was young, teenager or 20 years old, died of overdose of heroin in Harlem. Her name was Zelma Ann, named after my mother, who my mother's name was Zelma. That's an old Southern name. Zelma Jackson. My sister died of OD in an apartment building in Harlem, and my mother and I had to go identify her body. And that's why I try to make sure that people know how important it is to education and be involved in improving your outcomes so that, you don't have to move in that direction of, alcoholism, substance abuse, and things like that. Ideally, what we want to make sure is that people just are aware of who they are.
And if I may, Octavio, so like heroin in Uptown in the Heights is now gotten to to really epic proportions. And since you brought it up, I think it's something important to talk about because you know I, I feel, and I think you may differ, that the safe injection site on the 180th has been I think it has worsened the community in so many ways. I think it's created like a heroin corridor down 180th, right? And there's now things you never saw in Fort Washington. I grew up on Wadsworth, on east of Broadway, and my mom, because Wadsworth's elevated is the other side of the valley. I remember looking at across the Fort Tryon Park in Fort Washington, and I saying one day I'm going to make it and live there, right? And now you go to Fort Washington, there's a lot of heroin addicts. They'll go to the corner and they'll just go like this to the garbage, human feces. All these things are what's happening uptown, and what are your thoughts on harm reduction? Because one of the things I found interesting, and we learned from our council member, is that those two safe injection sites, they were put in on the last day at midnight of de Blasio's term, right? Without community input. It feels like an experiment. And I always say, I think it's like a Trojan horse for gentrification. So I just want to get your thoughts on that topic.
Sure. Well, Endpoint is on 180th Street and Amsterdam. I support that uh, establishment because what it does is for a safe place for someone that may be using drugs. But it also helps people to rehab when they're ready to go to rehabilitation. It's about the positive aspects. I mean, I'm not in favor of them using any drugs, but when they're going to use it, when the time comes that they need help in order to get away from that and get to rehabilitation, On Point is there to help them. And that's why I support them. And I told you the story about my younger sister, and that was in the 70s. But On Point is from a positive point of view and not just, you know, to give those that may be using heroin or drugs, giving them the opportunity, if they're going to do it in a safe place, like in On Point. But On Point was in our community for a long time even before it was on 180th and
It was on
Amsterdam.
first. And to be honest, if I may, Senator Jackson, that's when they came on, like in the 2018 is when you started seeing the early deterioration, in my opinion. And again, I think there's like other effects, right? Because it tells everyone on 180th, sell heroin, right? You're gonna have dedicated customers, right? And again, I feel like everything that's happened in this community is a direct result. And again, it does feel like it really is an experiment, right? If it's so bad, why don't we put one on every 10 blocks, right? Why is it only in Washington Heights and why in Harlem, right? The only two places that people of color have any power in this island of Manhattan is these two places, and that's where you put them. Like it really does feel to me, like it's an experiment that's on us. And I feel like my kids, if the kids on Park Avenue are not seeing drug addicts laying on the floor doing heroin, my kids shouldn't have to see it either. And that's just my take respectfully.
The city of New York has to improve the way that they're reaching out to people and using drugs. It's important to ask them, do you want to come inside? And what have you? And treat them like they're human beings. They are men and women, young and old. And the thing is that we want to treat them with the respect and bring them in order to move towards rehabilitation.
And I'm last thing I want to say about that. I'm sorry because I
That's
totally
okay.
understand that, but it feels like, and I say this all the time, it feels like it's a drug addict centric approach instead of a community approach, right? And I feel that at the end of the day, like our community loses with this. And again, it's what they tout all the time is they prevent people from ODing, but they never tout how many people get clean, because I don't think people get clean from On Point. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe you can illuminate on that, but I don't think that's that's really, they're not producing all these success stories where people get off of heroin, right? I think they continue people from dying. They stop people from dying, which is great because they are human beings. But
Yeah.
I think we're losing a lot. I think the regular people in this community that are not drug addicts are losing because of On Point and that kind of safe injection.
As I said, go back to what I said. My involvement is to try to help them as individuals in order to move towards not using drugs. Obviously, I know that the families of those individuals must be pleased that there's an organization that can help. And obviously, helping the individuals have to be ready to be helped
Yeah. Yeah,
because it's not easy.
it's a
It's not
challenging
easy.
it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. And my condolences to you for losing your sister for in to that scourge. And it's not new to Washington Heights and Harlem and to the world. I mean, it's a drug that's been around for a long time, and it unfortunately these days it's even more powerful than it was even back in the day. And me and Led, we between ourselves we debate this because me and Led are kind of, I feel, and I think Led also, I don't want to speak for you, Led, but I feel that it is important to help people who are in the throes of drug addiction. But I also, Led and I live like right around the corner from each other. And it also breaks my heart, number one, to see people on the street using. Number two, I'll tell you, this morning, my wife went down to the lobby to leave my building, and there was an addict trying to get into our building, like pulling on
Mm,
the doors. Maybe it was cold and it was cold, and I feel for that person, but she was terrified. So I had to literally walk her to the train station because she was afraid. So where I really meet with Led's viewpoint is that
yeah.
yes, we need to make sure that addicts are getting the care that they need, but I do believe that there needs to be more of a community centric approach. There needs to be more that's being done so that the community isn't bearing so much of the brunt of this problem. And I know it's a challenge. That's where we're at. And
Yeah.
I appreciate your position on this, but it's something that I feel that you and your colleagues, the other elected officials, need to understand or at least take more into consideration that the community itself is really, you know, feeling the effects of the addiction scourge, and we need help too. We need help too.
I think also the people should reach out to their elected representatives. People should reach out to our community board because obviously it's a concern. As I say, going back to the first thing, I talked about the safety and security of the people that we represent in their homes and in our communities. And where, in that example you gave, where the individual was trying to get into the building, it may have been because of the weather, but you don't want to take any chances, obviously. So, you
Yeah.
know, if you don't live here, please move on, okay? Just
Mhm.
because I call the police.
Senator Jackson, you were an early supporter of Mamdani when he was running for mayor.
Yeah.
I remember the first time that I met him. Actually, I met him on 181st and Fort Wash because of you. You know what I mean? I had him throw the. I said, the W for Washington Heights, and this is the M for Mamdani. I had him do that. That was because of you, because like you were early supporter of the brother. So, what did you see in him, and what are your initial thoughts so far?
Well, thank you. I mean, first of all, I've seen him where he was running in the early parts. Even when he finished from New York City, he comes straight back to Albany to work. And I saw him one night up in Albany. This was late at night, maybe 11 o'clock at night. He's on the bench getting back from New York City. And I've said that he's going to be successful. The free bus rides in every borough. The one in the Bronx was on Sedgwick Avenue is in my district. So basically that's when all of the people riding it was free. One free thing in each borough. So, and I've said that he's going to be successful, but he's going to need the help of city council, the city council members, and Julie Menon right now is the leader. They're going to need that. They're going to need the New York State Assembly, the New York State Senate, and the governor's office. And so, in essence, when you come together like that, just like's happening right now, he's still talking about, we have to tax the wealthiest New Yorkers, the rich, and not a whole lot, just a little bit. A little bit will bring in $4 to $6 billion, what
That's
we
right.
need in order to help our neighbors. And so I support him as a result of going back and listening to him and being positive about the fact that we can do it. And that's why, I've supported him. And, I'm not with him, I'm with the New York State Senate. I'm dealing with the constituents that I have, and that's what it's about. So I think he's going to be very successful. I think that the relationship that he's having with our governor, Kathy Hochul, is a good one, and all the others. But there's other people running also. So you have to be able to listen to other people and what they have to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you
We
gonna
want to.
Governor? Are you gonna endorse Governor Hochul on the show, or are we gonna say that for another time?
Sure, if she's coming, yeah, not a problem with me, because my issues and concerns is I chair the Civil Service and Pensions Committee. So I'm dealing with civil service rules and regulations and pensions, people's retirements, and being able to say that I can now retire and stay at home and enjoy my family. So I think that Kathy Hochul is reaching out to everyone that I know. And I think that she's willing to work hard to become the next governor. But so are other people. The lieutenant governor right now is
Gatto.
running to be governor. And you have others also. So we have to see what develops as a result of that. I know that one thing. I know I'm going to be voting. My vote is my vote. And so I will be voting on the primary and I will be voting on the general election.
And I just want to say that I'm actually kind of excited that she chose Adrian Adams as her running mate. Like that's historic, two women on the ballot, New York State. I think that's pretty amazing. Your thoughts?
Well, Adrian Adams, I thought when she was the speaker in the city council, I thought she was doing a good job. Very clear in her decisions, at least from my opinion, as someone that's outside of the circle of 50, 52 or 51 members of the city council. So what I hope for is I hope that whatever decisions are being made by individuals on an individual basis or a collective basis is going to improve the outcomes of the people of our city and our state.
That's great. And can I just ask you? Did I hear you say? Did I hear you correctly? Are you planning on retirement? Is this? Are you continuing in your life of public service, or are you looking at a retirement coming soon?
No, I'm not going to retire. I'm a runner, and runners are rough. It's,
Runners don't quit.
I've
In
I've
all
run
weather.
I've run at least 5 marathons, 3 that I ran myself. My brother-in-law is a visually impaired individual, totally blind. I've run 2 or 3 marathons with him. And
Oh,
so if I'm ready to run a marathon, how easy it is to run when basically no one has announced that they're not supporting me. So
yeah.
I'm running for re-election,
Excellent,
and that's
excellent.
what it is.
I do want to ask you one last question because we are hitting up on the hour here, and we promised to keep it to that. But on the corner of 181st Street and Fort Washington Avenue is the church, which is now no longer in use. The congregation was kicked out. I understand that the synagogue is still actually getting small extensions on their lease, but that's going to come to an end very very soon because they're going to be building their own synagogue soon at the Q Mart where the Q Mart used to be because that closed down.
Well,
My question to you
yeah.
is: do you know what's going to happen to that property? Do we have any insight as to what's going to be happening there?
Well, I don't know, but I hope that whatever happens there, that they could share their vision with the community, because what we don't need is we don't need a tall, huge development there. And if it is going to be built for housing, then let's use it for people in the community that are need street and DRE, seniors, or those that need help with as a result of their, disability or the needs that they need. Uh, Hopefully, that whatever happens, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that uh, the people that I know that were involved in it, messengers from God, they didn't treat us like that. We were
Yeah,
children that needed the help.
no, it was very
Well,
unfair. It was very unfair.
yeah, Senator Jackson, we want to thank you for being on the show. Thank you for not speeding, but making it from all the way from Albany here to be on the show. And we're gonna let you have your dinner. But tell the people, tell our audience how they can reach your office, how they can get in contact, how they can follow what's happening.
Sure. Well, if you're interested, here's my card. It says Robert Jackson, State Senator, and it's in English and Spanish. But as I said, we're at 5030 Broadway. People can come here, and if they have a question about housing and stuff like that, you can easily call. So I would say call first. And if you want to come by and speak with us about housing or education, or you make an appointment. So I have my staff in New York are virtual on Monday and Fridays. And they're in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But on the virtual day, they're working, but they're not in the office.
In the
They
office.
don't have to be in the office. And so we also have an office in the Bronx at Bronx Community College. We have one of our members there that works, and she's there the same thing. On Monday and Friday is virtual, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday she's there. So people can say, "Well, I live in the Bronx," and you can call 212-544-2041. That's our phone number. Again, 212-544-0173. 0173 is for 5030 Broadway, and 544-2041 is our legislative office in Albany. So
We'll make sure
what
to
it
get
is.
those numbers up on the screen so that everybody has the time to take it down. I appreciate your
The
time.
bottom line is that this is what it takes in order to move a mountain. We have to
Right.
work together. I tell people that if we want
Amen.
this bill, please call your representatives at every level and ask them, what have you done to help move this bill on behalf of the people of our district?
And just like you
So
did,
even if
I always tell the audience, please get involved, whether it's a community board, whether it's your school board, whatever the case may be, just get involved. Make sure your voice is heard. Make sure that you know what's going on, because there's a lot happening, and ignorance and apathy is not a choice anymore. And because even if you don't even if you don't feel like your politics is happening to you. So it's not about the politics. It's about getting to know what's happening in your community and having a voice and making sure that what's happening is what you want it to happen. So get involved. That's what I always say.
Senator Jackson, thank you so much, brother. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And
thank you. I hope that I see you soon in person
yes, sir.
in order to do this again. But finally, if people want to see our weekly update, we send out basically to people in the district, and it's in English. You say, why isn't it in Spanish? Well, at the top, if you say Espanol aquí, and you press it, and then it turns to Spanish. So
Nice.
please, if any one of your constituents that's listening, if they want to get this update, they could email or call the office, but they have to have an email for us in order to make sure that we get it to them. Okay.
I gotta say,
Thank you, sir.
I receive it, and it's very comprehensive. So I do encourage everybody. So I'll
So-
make sure that we have the email on the screen so that folks who want to
So
receive
many
it can
people
sign
have
up.
congratulated, and they said they appreciate it. And I say, that's my staff that's putting that together. Edwin puts that together and does a great job on behalf of the constituents that we represent.
Well, Edwin, it's
Edwin's the
good.
man.
It's
Edwin's the
good.
man.
I got to tell you, Edwin, you're killing it with the newsletter because it's comprehensive and there's so much in there for folks to know about what's going on. So thank you to you, Senator. Thank you to your staff. I really
sir.
appreciate that you're here with us. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
the
so much.
podcast.
Have a good day, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Take
Have
care.
a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us in this episode of Uptown Voices. If you enjoy our work, please consider making a financial contribution to Uptown Voices. Contributions go a long way. You can contribute by scanning the QR code on the screen or visiting bit.ly/Uptown Voices 2026. If you can't make a financial contribution, please spread the word about our show to friends and family. And to stay up to date on the latest in Uptown, you can follow Uptown Collective on Instagram, Facebook, and X. If you're watching Uptown Voices on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and to give us a like. Until next time, this has been Uptown Voices.